Jim Vogel shares the stories that inspire his paintings.
People try to put a finger on what I do, or they sometimes will say, what you paint is nostalgic. You have this kind of romanticized or nostalgic view of the old New Mexico, the New Mexico of my mom or even my granddad. And that's partly true, or it's a way for them to grasp what I'm doing. But what it really is, what I'm doing is saying that this may look like I'm representing a time past, but it's still here. These things are still here, this kind of farming or working the land that your father and your grandfather down the line did. And it's just that you have to pay attention for those stories to still be alive. And if you strip away like the modern common culture and you get rid of the cell phone constantly bugging you and the television wanting your attention and Facebook wanting your attention, and you listen to it, you can find that the stories are still there and the practices are still happening the way they were done in the past. They're quieter, they're worth looking for though. A lot of times those stories are just down there in the dirt and they want to rise up and still be told. And it's kind of like if a person walks by and the dust comes up and it's like, oh, that's them walking by, but they're already gone, but it's still there. And when I can reach out and grab that and then put it on a board with paint and canvas and tell that story, and somebody that knows those stories sees it and they connect and say, you got it right, that's when I know I've accomplished what I want. I love the idea of a story starting with, it is said, and that's how this was presented to me. It is said that there was a man on the train heading home from Colorado on the Chile line, which is really just right behind us. It's an old narrow gauge railroad. And the story goes on to tell about how this young man had taken the train north to Colorado to work on the industrial farms to make a cash living. And he got word that his wife was ready to deliver their first baby. So he wanted to get back on the train and head south to be there for her. And at the top of the mesa west of Taos is Barranca Hill. The trains have to stop at a siding and lock down their brakes because it's a very steep grade. He is sitting there waiting for that to happen, very impatient to get back down to Espanola Valley. And he sees a pregnant woman outside, kind of standing off of the siding, and she's out in the sagebrush and the piñons, and he's concerned. He's like, well, she's in the middle of nowhere, and in her condition, she shouldn't be here. So he initially thinks, well, there's got to be an explanation. But she makes eye contact with him and then starts walking into the wilderness. And he's like, oh, this isn't good. So he gets off the train and he starts to follow her, and he's calling to her to come back. And she just keeps leading him a little further away, a little further away. And at the point where he thought he was going to crest a hill and be able to find her and help her, he doesn't see anything but a flock of bluebirds that kind of burst off and fly away. And at that point, he hears the train whistle blowing, indicating that they're heading down the tracks. So he misses his train because of this phantom. So he's cursing and he's like, oh, I'm so stupid. And he's heading down. After a few miles, he sees at the bottom of the hill the train has rolled over on a trestle and crashed. And several of the passengers were hurt, and I think the engineer and the brakemen were dead. And at that point, he realized he was saved from probably a fatal accident by this folk saint that, we now say is Our Lady of Barranca Hill. I had a lot of time to think about how I was going to make art before I actually could make it for myself. And one of the simple thoughts that came to me is, I don't see in squares and rectangles, and therefore I'm not going to paint in squares and rectangles. So I would manipulate the shape of the painting to help enforce the composition rather than to just contain the composition. And from that kind of a creative approach to framing, I started working with my wife, Kristen, who's a tinsmith, and she brought this salvage art, like taking old pieces of tin and old pieces of furniture and combining them into almost more altars. My studio used to be in the old Catholic school building in the middle of Dixon, and right across the parking lot is the Senior Citizen Center. So I had the privilege of being visited by a select group of some of the seniors, and they'd like to come in and check on Kristen and I. That's what they call it. We're checking on you to see how you're doing, and they like to see what I was working on. And I end up going over to the dances, and I would dance a couple of dances with some of the ladies and watch and make mental notes. And then I realized just how beautiful they are dancing in their 70s and 80s. They still just love to dance. I feel like what I'm doing is representing a feeling of the body moving. I'm not representing an anatomical chart for reality's sake. It was a fall, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe 8 years ago. And there was a lot of ravens hanging around our house in particular. And I felt like it was like they're kind of harbingers of ominous things. A friend of mine, he's since passed, he was one of the old timers at the Senior Citizen Center that would come over and check on me, make sure I was actually working in there. Just watching him walk around and the way he had this kind of dark cloud over his head made me think of like maybe the ravens, their blackness and their noise, the incessant noise was, you know, like oppressing his personality and his spirit, and that maybe it was an omen that he wasn't getting. So in the composition, there's a elderly gentleman kind of strolling down this lane, but he's looking over his shoulder like, just what is it that's bugging me? And there's a raven up in the tree just cawing away. You know, like the message is loud and clear if you want to listen, but maybe you don't speak raven, I don't know, or maybe you just don't want to hear what he's got to say. To be creative, you have to create. So I don't wait around for inspiration. I come in and I roll out a piece of paper on the wall and I start drawing. And as I go through this exercise, and a lot of the drawings never see the light of day, it creates the energy that then makes the creativity come back. It's a double-edged sword. I'd love to be able to create without worrying about supporting the family and myself. But at the same time, it's very gratifying to do work that I love that supports myself and my family.